Hi, I'm Mike Blume, and this is my first video of painting, and I'm using acrylic paints, and I want to show you how I do portraits. I like focusing on portraits more than anything. It was always a challenge to me to do high realistic portraits, and I would always kind of favor doing famous people because everybody can recognize immediately a famous face. And if it's off key a bit when you draw it, well, they'll be able to recognize it pretty quickly. So drawing famous people was kind of like a challenge to me. Now this painting, I started it and the client had chosen the picture that I showed earlier, but then wanted this other one done instead. And so him actually painting over the first attempt. So you can see how I start with a pencil drawing of the outlines of where the features should go, make it very basic. So the position of the eyes compared to the placement of the nose, the mouth, the ears, and the width of the face and the height of the face is so important. And I really want to emphasize that if you get that off a little bit, people can tell there's something wrong. They might even be able to tell who you're drawing and painting, especially if it's a famous person, but they can tell it's still off key. So I always go by shapes. Everything to me is a shape, including the shine on the boy's cheeks. And there's a certain shape between that shine on his cheeks from his eyes. And that has got to be the right size of shape. And as you can see, I'm doing the basic part of the flesh first. I can't even remember what they say you should do first when you use acrylic. It's supposed to be the opposite of when you use oil. To me, it works either way. It just doesn't matter to me. I'm not so much into the mechanics of it as I am the just making sure it looks right. So I start with the flesh, and you use, when I do flesh, I use yellow, brown, and like a raw umber for the darker brown, and a lighter brown, and then some red, and then white, of course, lots of white. Mix it together to get that fleshly color just right. Now on here, the shading that's kind of using raw umber, it's a little darker shading. Later on, I change that because it kind of looks a bit dirty there. Let me explain it here on the microphone. Now, what I'm going to do is work on the hair now. I just fine-tuned a lot of the facial nuances and shades and lighting, and now I'm going to go for the hair and show you how that works. And then once that's pretty well done, sometimes I bounce back and forth between the hair and maybe doing some details with a fine brush for hairs. But I'm gonna just work on the hair right now and get a basic color going and then shading, and then work from there to the more finer things as we go along. So there's the original picture I'm working from. And this is a 18 by 24 inch painting. Now, a lot of the details of what I did with the hair, I put my head in front of the camera, so I had to cut a lot of that out, but you can see basically what I'm doing. Now this boy has bright red hair, beautiful bright red hair, and it's such a beautiful coordination with the green around it. Green and orange always go together, and then he has a brilliant blue plaid shirt on, which adds even more. But there you can see I've got a lot of the face's details done. There's still much more work to be done, and I did change the hue of the shading. But plaid, oh my, I did one other painting, and it was a black and white painting, and I really find black and white paintings easiest to do. I can make them look most realistic because I drew with pencils and charcoal for decades, starting off when I was in grade 5, I remember, in school, when I got the epiphany that I'm just putting shapes together. That was the whole key. And plaid, oh, it's painstakingly enduring, and it takes patience to do it. I don't want to do any more plaid shirts. This is my second one, and hopefully my last. So what I'm doing, of course, and I'm not even cleaning my brush between the darks and the blacks and the lighter blues, because I've got blue in all of it. And I did that same thing with the flesh and the skin. I don't clean the brush off till it's absolutely clean before I go and do another color. It's just my way of doing it. But I would just add some darkening for the white. And I like using a Payne's gray for black. It's not actually black. They say that Payne's gray, it's a black made by mixing colors together. So it's not so stark. There's a bit of warmth to it. Even though it's black, you think of it being cold, but there's a bit of color involved in it. So I kind of use that here instead of just outright Mars black. Although I still use Mars black. In fact, they say you should never do a black and white painting with just Mars black. Get Payne's gray instead. But I do both. But again, you know, and what's neat is you can see the shading here. Now I've got some mixing material, mixing fluid, which extends. It's called extender, or just to make the paint last with its wetness, keep it wet. Acrylic dries incredibly fast, and you've got to get some fluid to just keep it from drying so quickly and keep it wet. So I'll add a bit of white there and then blend it in, and then a bit more white if I want to keep blending it further and make it mix. But the plaid's pretty straightforward. There's just a little bit of shading in some of those colors. And there you're looking at it even closer. You can see I still got to do more lining work around the neck. But most of this video is about dealing with the tones in his face and with the plaid shirt. And then it's also important that you get the right opacity to your paint. Now, you've got little blocks. I'll show that in a picture. You've got tubes of paint that have a solid square block, which means it's 100% opaque. It covers up easily. But then when you've got a block which half of it is darkened and half of it is left white, that's half and half. It's translucent. It's not totally opaque. And so you got to keep that in mind. And with the blue I had, it wasn't 100% opaque, but the white was titanium white. And there I mixed a little bit of Payne's gray into that blue. And just go back to the dark again, the Payne's gray or the black. And again, it's just drawing shapes, and it's painting the shapes and filling them out and trying to get the colors as matching as perfectly as you can to what you're seeing in the picture. And you can see how I've got some diagonal right where my knuckle is in my hand by the brush stem. You can see some black and white lines going diagonally. That's to show like the threads in the shirt. I'm not going to go super, super high realistic in the shirt. It would take months, especially being plaid. But enough realism, of course. But the child's face is the focus. And everything else really just frames that. And so you can see now I've got it in the middle. I'm blocking it right at the moment, but the button is there, but there are more details to be done. Now here where I'm painting right now, see I'm blending there a little bit? Because there's a little fold in that shirt, at that part of his shirt, his sleeve, I put a bit of white there and blend it. And while the other paint is still a bit wet, I just try to mix them together on the canvas to make that shading effect look nicer. And you get used to the pattern. I did a Robert Plant shirt for somebody once, and oh my, the flowery patterns on his shirt were unbelievable. It took a long time. It was almost, if not worse than plaid. But every little detail, you have to get it faithful. And so you can see the pattern happening there where you've got 3 lighter stripes all over the boy's shirt, and then black on going perpendicular to that, and a darker blue. So I'm working away, putting those details in. And even that's very important. Notice I'm blurring the lines. In reality, no lines are sharp when you look at them. There's a bit of a blur there, and there's a temptation. When I first started painting, I never even thought of this. Now, I started painting about 3 or 4 years ago, and I just would do stark lines, and then somebody just happened to say, well, you know, you shouldn't do that. You should blur those edges, and it looks more realistic. If you're looking for realism, blur all your edges, some just slightly. And so that's what I end up doing. Now I'm going to have to change the color of his eyebrows and that later on to be more red. But you're getting a good picture now of some details. And then getting exactly the right shading as close as you can. One man had a great idea for doing this. He's got a lot of YouTube videos and my awesome realistic acrylic painter. He says, get a sheet of paper, punch out a little small hole, size like a pencil could fit through, put it on top of the original picture you're getting at of whatever color you're wanting to work at that part of the painting, and then try to match paint up with it. Because the translation from just looking straight at a photo and then trying to mix it on your palette to get that color sometimes isn't right on. You get a bit off. I've never really done what he said. I should do that more because like I said, I'm used to drawing black and white, and then going to color was a new world. In fact, that's what kept me back from painting for years. In high school, I did a couple oil paintings, but I couldn't get them near the realism that I wanted. So I kind of gave up. I didn't know how to go at it. So a few years ago, I just took a basic acrylic painting class here in our community, and I'm ever grateful to the woman that led it and gave me a good jump start and a push in the right direction of how to start. Like I didn't even know where to start with when you do these kind of paintings. I would always draw the eyes first when I did drawing on pencil and paper. But paintings was something else. So I usually don't paint the eyes first. If I'm drawing the picture out on canvas, yes, I will do the eyes first in my drawing. So you can see again, I'm toning it down. I'm trying to blend the edges a little bit there by his eye, right around his tear ducts. And I always try to get a photo as clear as I can to work from because I want to get all the details correct. I tell the people if I can see the hairs of his eyebrows in the picture, photograph, that's ideal to work with. I've done a few paintings that weren't that clear. I managed to pull it off, but I'd much rather have a really high resolution photo to work from. Just like you can see my skin right there right now. And then the lips, you know, rarely do you ever use actual black. I mean, for the eyes, the irises of the eyes, yes. And even the edge of the iris, but the pupils, I should say the pupils will be black. But the lines that I've got there that are right black, I'm just lightening them up now with a bit of color, according to what the picture actually looks like. And they're starting to change some of the eyebrow coloring there. I couldn't really see the hairs of his eyebrow in the photo, but you kind of got an idea of how they go anyway. And it's the picture too I worked from didn't have the clarity I would have liked because it's an outside picture. His face was really bleached by the light of the sun, and his skin color was really pale to begin with. I'm sure redheads know that that's an issue that they just genetically have. Skin is quite pale, and any bit of sun is easily burning the skin rather than tanning it type of thing. So his skin was quite white. But see, between his eyes on the bridge of his nose, there's a little bit of a shading. That was a challenge in this painting. I kept having a temptation to make it too dark. I had to lighten it up. And whites of the eyes, they're never solid white. I mean, you who have painted a bit know this already, but they're never solid white. And you've got to tone them down. That was another thing that kind of shocked me when I was painting. I mean, drawing with pencil's different, but it's a whole new world when you use colors. And there is a bit of white for sure, and that's why I just touched up a bit of white. But notice there's gray around that white. And that should be blurred in a bit. Not make a stark edge there either. And his eyelashes. And that little area along the edge of the eyelid. So there you can see some more hair, how I've done some highlights, and this is really close. I mean, no one looks at a painting this close, but just to show you the... So I'm still going to change. In fact, I didn't get on video me actually putting the different hue for shading around the dimples in his cheeks and so forth. I'll show you a picture of that later of the finished product. But during the video, I kind of left it at that color the way it was. Kind of looked more like that in the picture anyway, in the photo I worked from. But I realized it needs to be changed. You can take a little bit of liberty and not go exactly the way the photograph shows it. I had to get more. See how I put some white there and then darken the white up just a tiny bit and then go along the edge of where you want the white to remain and blend it in more to the surrounding colors to do the shading. Seems most of the clarity here in the last few minutes is of me rather than the painting. The camera just wasn't focusing in properly like I would have wanted it to. And that's it. And here's the result, a picture of the result. And you can see what it looks like now. The customer was very happy. I should have timed this. I always have a bad habit of not counting and marking the time I take to do paintings. I just want to get at it and paint. And so I hope you enjoyed this. And I'll be doing some more videos. I'm already started on another one, and I'll show you that soon. It's a grandmother and her grandson. And the family wanted me to do this. So subscribe to my channel. Click the bell for notifications so that you will see future videos that are added to this. And share this around. Tell people about it if they're interested in drawing and painting. And we'll get into more details and more scenarios with different kind of photos we do. And I like I said, I like doing realistic as much as realistic as I could. And thanks for watching.